Southgate's future has been in question this week. It's been in question for a while.
I think it's been in answer this week, hasn't it?
Well,
Really?
okay. Well, indeed. Of course, England returned to action against Ukraine on Saturday in another qualifier ahead of the Euros in 2024 next summer. But his contract at England expires next December. December next year, 2024. But according to reports this week, he could be set to leave after the Euros. What do you think, Vish? Did this put you into a panic, or did you think, yeah, that's probably about right?
And also, where's this story come from? Like, how's this come out?
It's come out in the way that these stories usually come out because it's an international week, and so journalists make calls and have conversations with the FA around the national team. It's pretty common. It's when the focus shifts, really, that everyone kind of arrows in on that, and that's where it's come from.
Yeah.
And also, as with most football stories, it comes from agents, really.
Yeah.
So they'll be privy to certain conversations, and that'll come through there.
I mean, you'd say it's a feeling and an atmosphere rather than a bombshell at this point,
exactly.
wouldn't you?
Because it makes sense. I think it does make sense. I
Yeah.
mean, I think it's a natural endpoint for what has been very successful, and more importantly, for our collective psyche and support of England. A very nourishing period that I think a lot of us thought were beyond the national team, specifically the England men's national team, in terms of attachment, football, success to a point. I appreciate that we haven't picked up any silverware as such, but it feels like the right time on a number of fronts because I think he has taken England as far as he can, and that's not necessarily disparaging towards him. I just think it's just a progression of the players now. If you think of how he started from the under-21s to now, those younger players who are coming through and becoming prominent members in this squad, in this first team, to be fair, I think it kind of makes sense. I mean, like I suppose the big question is a successor, but in terms of Southgate walking away, this feels like the cleanest break.
Yeah, Andy, I agree with you, Vish. I think, with Southgate, Andy, as Vish says, it's been, from an England fan's point of view, or certainly from my point of view, I think a lot of people, it's been absolutely great this period.
And it's about more than just the team.
It is about more than the team, but of course, results and silverware will ultimately sort of dictate. If you'd have won the last 2 or 3 tournaments, people would have said, crying out loud, stay on. But with Southgate, I suppose the situation is if England underperform at the Euros, we're assuming that they're going to get there. They're in pole position in the group. It'd be an absolute unmitigated disaster if they didn't qualify.
Well, they'll go anywhere.
And of course, if they didn't qualify,
England have always been really good at qualifying.
Yeah,
over the last decade and a half.
If they don't qualify, he's done.
So
it's irrelevant.
So with regards to the tournament, if they underperform at the tournament, it's probably time to go. If they win the tournament, which I personally think they have a hell of a chance.
It's a brilliant time to go.
It is absolutely the time to go.
It's the apex.
And if they finish, say they get to the quarters or the semi-finals, it's kind of like it's where perhaps that's the ceiling there, and that would probably be the time to go.
But I think, Marcus, what you were talking about there, what would be par, what would be overachieving, and what would be underachieving, is all very objective, isn't it? Don't you? It's all very subjective.
I don't think they can overachieve at this tournament. I think winning this tournament wouldn't be overachieving for this England side, considering the position.
I agree. You see, I don't think it would be par.
No, I don't think it's par. Well, okay. So if you put those sort of parameters, then technically it's
you see, we've discussed this before, and I think England are one of the teams who can reasonably aspire to win it. That doesn't mean they're the overwhelming favourite, and not winning it is a failure. I think that's the difference.
I agree with that point.
Because it's a cup competition.
But I don't think winning it would be...
That's the thing. It's all about the manner. So say if, for example, if England, say, lost in the semi-final or the final with a similar performance to the one at France in the World Cup, that would be par, fair enough.
But do you think Southgate would then? It's a good time for him to talk. Can you see him staying on after the Euros?
I think he goes anyway, and I think it's interesting the fact that Pep Guardiola's name has been mentioned as whether he would be interested in it is a different question, but that the FA are interested in him. I think that speaks to how people are feeling, what Vish was talking about in terms of Southgate having taken England as far as they can get. And I don't think the result of the Euros will change that if we're talking about the progression of this set of players. The fact is, the way the Premier League has gone, the sort of players that England produces nowadays, I think Pep Guardiola will click with those players, not just because he's a coach that makes players demonstrably better. I think he will click with those players better than Gareth Southgate will.
I think it's within England's interest to keep Guardiola at club level, because you talk about the kind of players England produce now. We've got Guardiola to thank.
Yeah, that's where I diverge from Andy. I think I feel like
not that the FA have any choice where Guardiola.
No,
and
of course they're interested. He's the best manager in the world, so they're obviously they're not doing their job. I mean, they don't do their job properly, but that particular part of their job would not be doing properly, specifically if they weren't interested in him, and that's kind of fine. The problem is that Guardiola's a proper details man. He's forensic.
He's at week to week, day to day,
and he's not going to get that time.
No.
He's not going to get that. I mean, the amount of he'll.
Can you know how mad he would be waiting weeks and months?
He'll be saying, sorry, Vish, he'll be saying to Erik Ten Hag, I need Marcus Rashford in March. The tournament's not till June. I need him now.
And we're currently in September.
Yeah, I need him now.
I need to condition him. I need to get. Yeah. He would become like Doc Brown in Back to the Future. You know what I mean? You wouldn't see him for a while. Without the hair.
Would.
Like, imagine that. No one's seen Guardiola for a couple of months. And when you see him next, he is buzzing at the press conference. He's all
like
over
when Chiro, where he goes off-road in Gamora.
Yeah, exactly.
I really don't think that we, as football fans, as a football family, should be...
And we are a family.
And we are. I don't think we should be giving Pep Guardiola that much free time. We simply, we simply do not know what
he's done a drum and bass album. he's putting out an FA record.
He's teamed up with Whacking Phoenix.
We need to give him something to do. I was a bit worried when they won the treble, Man City, but he's...
Hang on a minute. Is he running SpaceX? He's running SpaceX.
Oh dear.
Yeah. He's run to Windsor.
It's a good point. Yeah. Here's another thing that is to bring this back, crashing back down to earth, not SpaceX, bringing this back down to earth, is that the issue with, I said it's kind of fine that the FA wants Guardiola, great, fine, everyone in the world wants Guardiola, that's kind of par for the course. The issue with them making this statement, whether it's a statement or whether they've leaked it out via a journalist, is that it should give England fans pause for thought, because it shows there's no proper succession plan in place, which is something we've been talking about on this show for years. The start that Southgate's made, the platform he's developed, the way he's revolutionised that England setup should be seen as a platform, not a kind of summit. And because they haven't been able to do anything to get anyone in place behind him that I know of, they've not done like a Yogi Love situation. They've not done anything in terms of succession planning alongside him. Steve Holland's not going to get the job next, and he's been the right-hand man for Southgate for years. There's been no one in there ready to go. So if they're, at this point, scratching around, leaking out they'd quite like Pep Guardiola, thanks, and that's the extent of their succession planning, then we're going to go back to where we started.
I think the reason they're going for... So I looked at this from a different point of view. I think the reason they're going for Pep Guardiola is because they have succession planned, in that the roots are there. The roots weren't there 5 years ago, but it's clear from the way that the under-21s, the under-17s go about their business, the way England are profiling players a lot better now, the way that they're...
Under-21s are winning the Euro.
But Vish, they're not good. The point is this, so surely they're not going to get Pep Guardiola. No, they're not going to get a 52-year-old Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, sure, but like I think if you look at what they've put in place there, they've basically put in place, an academy of sorts, a setup that probably the closest that we've had that mimics a really successful club setup, which is kind of Man City. So it means that you can go in for those kind of managers and have them, looking through the under-17s, looking through the under-21s, and judging it in the way that Southgate has grown to judge, the players within that setup. But I'm not saying Guardiola would be a good move, but I don't have any problem with them looking at managers like that, looking at kind of more system managers.
But I think you'd need a manager who's familiar with the England setup, because if you did parachute someone else in, it doesn't take long for that to suddenly, if he doesn't quite click, he's not getting his way, there's a bit of an ill feeling.
It's a risk going big for a results manager in inverted commas.
I do think it is. I mean, look at Southgate. Southgate didn't want the job, according to some reports, first. I mean,
it's worked for him because he knows every level of the FA.
Yeah, I mean, Lee Carsley, former Ireland international.
Well, we're doing.
Well, let me finish.
Sorry.
There's a Lee Carsley, former Ireland international, which obviously led England to a Euros under-21s win, playing some very good football. People would think that is a massively underwhelming appointment if he was to take over from Southgate and whatnot. But it's the route that happened with Southgate. Now, nothing's a gimme, and I just think that he would know that system.
And crucially, he would actually take the job.
Well, yeah, but again, I don't think you have to do that. I don't think he's in the under-21s and they had successor, therefore he needs to. I just think that whatever you do, it's a bit of a risk, and I think that getting in a big name, the FA have tried to do that, and I think with a big name I'm not sure if they would want to come in and then impose their thoughts on the whole setup, their thing. Whereas, as you say, this platform and this template, if you like, that Southgate has helped create among a lot of other people in the FA, how you have a camp when you're at the World Cup, how you do it, and all that sort of thing. It wouldn't take that long for a manager who disagrees with that to kind of not undo it all, but make it there would be a bit of tension and so on, because the charisma and the personalities of those involved, that does mean something.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I suppose a lot of the things that they would maybe tinker with, I feel like would be more on field, because so much of the other stuff has been so successful that it's set in stone. Even little things like in terms of like media work, ahead of his first tournament in 2018.
Very different.
Yeah, Southgate decided to do
NFL style.
You might have been there, but yeah, he decided to do like an open training hall. Everyone is there up for grabs. Talk to whoever you want. Yep. Embargoes, whatever. Work it out yourself. And it was quite refreshing. And it basically ended up having the players a bit more understanding with the media and vice versa. And probably the media understanding with the players that was most important. And it kind of built up a bit of a collective psyche. Now, the FA aren't going to stop doing that because someone comes in and things are a bit different.
You say that. I think a top end of the Premier League / European football manager is going to expect a completely different level of control, and they often govern that, don't they?
Yeah, that's
and that
true.
would be the danger for me.
I think in terms of atmosphere, that's quite an interesting.
We're all looking
thought.
forward to Frank Lampard taking the job.
Wow,
right? He knows the team,
and the thing is, this legacy situation and this kind of thing of what the impact that Southgate leaves. Part of it, at least, will depend on how they perform next summer.
Yeah.
And, Andy and I sat chatting about this. We disagreed on this a number of years ago. Andy was sat where Vish is now, and he said that, you've got to build slowly and you can't expect the world straight away and et cetera, et cetera. Well, we're now, time comes at you fast, and we're now at the point where it's going to probably be his last roll of the dice.
So his fourth tournament.
So for him to have the impact he wants to have, I feel like you can never say they've got to win, because so much of tournaments depends on luck and the draw and all the rest of it. Yeah. And it can hinge on something so small that you can't expect it to be in control of that. But they need to be in a situation now where if everything goes well for them, they win.
They're among the favourites.
And then you see what comes off the back of that. Because I think if the FA haven't planned for this succession to kick on again, and they don't win in the summer, it's all going to be not for nothing, but it's all going to be wasted.
Yeah.
Cheers for watching another fantastic clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Make sure you click like on this video and subscribe to the channel, which means you will not miss a single upload.